related transportation, no more family seating junk fees for several airlines, passengers who experienced delays on Southwest flights that are considered controllable will receive $75 compensation vouchers as required by our consent order, and the first ever protections against frequent flyer points devaluation that were secured in the Alaska-Hawaiian Agreement. Enhanced protections for millions of passengers with disabilities who deserve to travel safely and with dignity. $4 billion in refunds that had been owed by airlines to passengers secured with our help, and a new partnership with over 20 state attorneys general that makes it possible for them to investigate airline complaints. And there is even now a lot more good work underway to make sure passengers get a fair deal, which is why we are working on rules to ban family seating junk fees outright on all flights, to require airlines to pay cash compensation to travelers that they strand, setting standard for when and what level of service, like meals, hotels, related transportation, and free rebooking airlines will provide during disruptions, and protections for passengers who use wheelchairs. We're fighting in court for our rule requiring airlines to tell you up front what fees they charge, a common sense measure that the airlines are still suing to overturn. Investigating Delta Airlines and others for meltdowns that took place this summer. Scrutinizing airline privacy policies to make sure that they are not unfairly using passengers' personal data. Probing the 4 largest airlines' reward programs amid concerns that they could be devaluing points, hiding prices, charging extra fees, or making it harder for smaller airlines to compete. Examining the state of competition in air travel and what practices or problems might be limiting flight options, making flights more expensive, or otherwise making it painful to fly. In sum, our administration has overseen the largest expansion of airline passenger rights and enforcement in the history of our department. During the busiest air travel years in the history of our country, with some of the lowest rates of flight cancellations in over a decade this year. At the same time, we have also made historic investments in our aviation infrastructure to make sure that the U.S. airspace maintains its status as the safest, most efficient, most complex airspace in the world. The fact that the safest way to travel in the world is to enter a metal tube with dozens or hundreds of other people and be propelled through the air by highly flammable liquids at nearly the speed of sound, sometimes miles above the surface of the ground, that is the safest form of travel we have, I think represents a civilizational achievement that we all too often take for granted. That achievement is hard-earned and renewed every day by the efforts of everyone involved in our aviation system: air traffic controllers, pilots, flight attendants, TSA personnel, ground crews, so many people at the FAA and other workers who power our commercial aviation sector. And if you have been through an airport lately, you've also noticed some construction underway. Thanks to President Biden's infrastructure package, we are modernizing airports with the first ever federal funding program for front-of-house projects alongside the more traditional investments in things like radars and control towers and taxiways. Billions of dollars have been awarded to help airports add more check-in counters, build faster security checkpoints, improve baggage claim, make it easier to find your gate, and in some cases help build entire new terminals and the roads to access them. To date, we have invested in nearly 1,500 airports across this country, some on projects where they've already cut the ribbon on a finished project, while others are just getting underway. We also continue to call on Congress to give FAA the long-term, stable funding that it needs to modernize equipment and ensure smooth operations far into the future through mandatory funding for their capital accounts. There's a lot of mention just in the last few minutes. There's one final message I want to leave the traveling public with, which is if you are traveling this week, next week, remember how much we all count on the aviation workers who safely get us where we need to go. Since the pandemic, harassments and even attacks hit unprecedented highs. Those incidents are down from those peaks, but any number other than 0 is intolerable. That kind of behavior puts everyone in the plane at risk, and it can result in major fines, jail time, or both. We take these incidents seriously, we refer them directly to the Department of Justice. So please treat your flight crew with the respect that they deserve. And with that, I will turn it over to our FAA administrator, who will share more about what we have been doing to improve operations and to make sure that everyone can travel as safely and as efficiently as possible over the holidays. Mike? Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm pleased to be here with Secretary Buttigieg and Administrator Pekoski, ahead of what we think will be our busiest Thanksgiving travel period ever. And while every day between now and Thanksgiving will be very busy, Tuesday is forecasted to be our busiest day. And while we know everyone wants to get to their final destination as quickly as possible, our priority is to get you there safely. So you should rest assured the air travel is safer than ever. The FAA works around the clock so that passengers are safe from takeoff to touchdown. In fact, we've seen recently a drop in close calls. And for the first 9 months of 2024, the rate of serious close calls decreased by 72% from the same period last year. That's the result of a lot of action that we've taken to address and prevent runway close calls, including deploying new technology around the country. For example, we sent 4 airfield surveillance systems to the fastest growing airports in the country: Austin, Indianapolis, Nashville, and Dallas Love. This technology reduces the risk of runway incursions by improving air traffic controllers' situational awareness. It's been so successful that we want to deploy that at 14 more airports by the end of this calendar year. We've also installed approach runway verification systems at more than 74 airport towers. This technology provides audio and visual alerts to controllers if an arriving aircraft is lined up to land on the wrong airport surface. And finally, we installed runway